The Seventh Tower by Garth Nix. Book 5. Into Battle. Chapter 27. Tal advanced into the antechamber cautiously. Despite Adris's complacency, he was sure there was a trap. There was no way Sushin would have left Grail unguarded. But he couldn't see anything. There were no strange sunstones in the walls or ceiling, no shadows moving where they shouldn't be, no odd patches of darkness. He checked the door to the sunroom. Adris had opened it, and it, too, seemed innocuous. Tal edged through the doorway, ready for anything. As always, the heat hit him, and the humidity. The sunroom's walls and ceiling were covered in tiny sunstones that constantly emitted light and heat. The humidity was explained by an onion-shaped dome in the corner, pricked with thousands of tiny holes that had steam wafting out of them. It was directly connected to one of the lesser steam pipes of the castle. Grail was lying on the bed, not moving. Tal felt a sharp pain in his chest as he saw her. She looked so gray and wasted. For a panicked second, he couldn't see her spirit shadow, then he spotted it under the bed. It too had faded, and was now only a sad remnant of the great shadow owl it had once been. Tal stood absolutely still, looking at his sick mother. Was it water spider venom that had made her like this? Water spider venom given to her by Sushin? Or was it something else? Something that the antidote he now clenched in his hand would be useless against. Tal took a deep breath and knelt down by the bed. He opened the vial of antidote, then gently lifted Grail's head, supporting her neck. She was breathing very, very slowly and infrequently, and she did not respond to his touch. Her skin was also very, very cold. Tal poured the antidote into her mouth, closed it, pinched her nose, and shook her a little. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then she suddenly coughed, an explosive cough that almost made Tal let go of her. He did release his pinch on her nose. She coughed again, a racking cough that shook her whole body. Then her eyes opened. She couldn't focus at first. Tal eased her head back onto the pillows. Her eyes grew sharp, and she smiled at him as he plumped up her pillows. "Tal," she whispered, "you've grown." Tal smiled back, and a single tear slid down his cheek. He wiped it away as Grail saw the ring upon his hand. "You've got a sunstone," she added, her voice so faint Tal could hardly hear. "A primary sunstone. We will be able to go to Ymir." Her own sunstone lay on her chest, suspended on a silver chain. It barely sparked. Tal wondered what Sushin had done to it. "It's a bit more complicated than that, Mother," Tal said hastily. He looked around. He knew Sushin must have trapped the room somehow. "A lot has happened. A real lot. We have to get away from here, for a start." Grail nodded, but when she tried to get up, it was obviously beyond her. Her spirit shadow, which was also looking a little better, tried to help her, but it still had no strength. "Adris will carry you," said Tal. "My spirit shadow. Adris!" "Your spirit shadow," echoed Grail. She smiled again. "A lot has happened." "Adris!" Adris came back into the room. He was holding a tiny, squirming fleck of shadow in 2 fingers.
"Look what I found! There were lots of them, but the others got away."
Tal stared at the tiny, wriggling thing. It was the smallest spirit shadow he had ever seen. He couldn't even clearly see what it was.
"It's the spirit shadow of a frox,"
explained Adris kindly.
"This is what a swarm's made out of."
"It's speaking aloud," said Grail faintly. Tal thought she meant the frox, until he realized she meant Adris. Chosen spirit shadows never spoke in public, only to their masters, in private. "Adris is different," said Tal quickly. "The frogs that got away were probably reporting to someone right now. They had to move quickly." "Adris, please pick up my mother carefully," he said. "Her name is Grail. You must protect her as if she were me."
Sure.
boomed Adris. He bent over the bed and easily picked up both Grail and her spirit shadow, which jumped onto her stomach at the last moment. In full health, the great owl was normally the same size as Tal, but it had withered to less than a third of his height. "Where are we going?" whispered Grail. "How did you wake me?" "You've been poisoned with water spider venom," explained Tal quickly as he led the way out. "I got an antidote from Ebbet. I'll explain. That is..." A sound from beyond the outer door saved him. Footsteps. Tal raised his sunstone. All his anxiety and fear for his mother flowed into it. The stone took it in as raw power and instantly shed its disguise. Violet light filled the room. Grail let out a shocked cry. "Violet!" Tal cursed. Someone tried the door. "Back!" Tal whispered. They retreated swiftly back. Tal paused at the sunroom door, keeping it open a fraction. His sunstone, now a vivid violet, shone ready. Once again, Tal didn't have a particular light spell ready. Just a violent anger that he let build in the sunstone. The outer door opened. 2 guards crept in. They had their swords and sunstones ready. Sushin was behind them, his great bulk filling the door. He was wearing the robes of a violet Shadow Lord openly, and had even more sunstones on his hands and body than ever before. Tal didn't wait. He directed all his hatred through the sunstone and out toward the 3 chosen. A terrible blast of raw violet light flew across the room. It blew furniture to pieces, picked up the guards, and hurled them out into the corridor. The blast sent Sushin reeling back, his sunstones flashing as they absorbed the shock. Before Tal could loose another blast, Sushin threw something at him. A ball, about the size of a juice fruit. It hit Tal on the chest and exploded everywhere exactly like a juice fruit. Water flew up in Tal's face and dripped down his chin. But water tainted with something. Something that smelled horrible and familiar. Tal couldn't place it for a moment. Then he knew. It was spider venom. A second later, Tal felt it flow through his veins. It might be slower than when it was injected by a spider, but he probably had less than a minute before he was unconscious. He slammed the door and staggered back. Adris was putting Grail down on the bed, the big spirit shadow already yawning. "Mother," Tal said, forcing the words out against the darkness that was descending inside his head. "Pretend to be sick still. When you can, go down to the underfolk levels. Tell the Ice Carls you're Tal's friend. Tell him to take you to Mila, if she lives. Tell her Lokar is released. Take the violet half." He tried to slip the sunstone from his finger, but it was already too late. It was on too tight, and there was no strength in his hands. Then he remembered the last vial of antidote, still tied into his shirt. Weakening fingers fumbled at the knot. He almost had it undone when darkness claimed him.